Hello everybody, I'm back at my Speedboat project. I haven't done any videos since a while because it seemed to be a little bit difficult working on the boat and shooting videos at the same time. Mainly because doing lots of fiberglass work, I can't deal with the camera. And for the most part, it's kind of boring anyways. So that's how the boat looks now. Quite different from when I started. Actually got a new seat in there. Still very rough, but at least something to sit on rather than just on the floorboard. Got the engine controls mounted. A new steering wheel on there. This compartment is of course even more rough, but I got a tank in there. Some aluminum tank I had laying around. I think it's a maybe roughly 20 gallon, not sure. Don't have a level gauge in it yet. So anyhow, this video I'm actually more focusing on this Honda motor, BF40, 40 horsepower, 4-stroke outboard motor, which I'm not happy with the performance. The motor runs. I did a bunch of work, which I'm gonna get to here in a minute. But at the first test run, I took it to a local lake, and the boat would barely go over 20 miles an hour. So I bought this motor used. Of course, used. And right from the get-go, it had a bunch of problems. It had issues with overheating. So I found that there was a bunch of crap inside of the cooling passages. I cleaned it out as good as I could. And next I noticed I had problems with the carburetors. So I took them apart, found out there's some parts inside, they were kind of like not trustworthy anymore. I ended up finding a set of decent looking carburetors on eBay, bought those. And installed them. But whatever I did, I could never get this boat going more than 22 miles an hour. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part is it had no acceleration. It had a hard time getting out of the water. It kept on bogging down, especially in the mid-range. Not sure what the how much RPM it would even produce on full output, since I don't have a tach on there. Probably would be a good idea to get this eventually hooked up too, so I actually know where the RPM are. RPM is, I mean. So I did a bunch of more tests, and I finally actually, and I should have done that right away, did a compression test and found out that the first cylinder, which is the top one, had about I think it was something around 90 pounds, and the second and the third, they were barely at about 50 pounds. So I took the cylinder head off, and I found the head gasket was damaged. And it was also good that I took the head off, because there was so much cloggage in all the cooling passages around the cylinder walls, and just basically everywhere. So I cleaned that all up, took the head to a local machine shop, had it reworked, well, basically just resurfaced and cleaned. Got a new head gasket, put it on, and yeah, that restored the compression. And so I thought that's it. I was eager to take it back out in the lake and test it. Well, this time I would go about 25, 26, if I really pushed it, 27 miles an hour. By playing with the trim a little bit to the point that it actually started coming out too far out of the water. The acceleration was slightly better, but it still had a hard time getting on top of the water into planning. So, yeah, that's completely unacceptable. I mean, I didn't expect a lot out of a 40 horsepower motor, but it should push that little lightweight boat at least to 35, maybe 40 miles an hour. And pretty quickly. So, you know, the propeller on it is just a regular stock Honda propeller. It's nothing special, just what those motors been supplied with. So it's not like it's overpropped or anything. I even changed the CDI ignition module because I thought maybe that was a mistake. I played a little bit around with the cam timing. Didn't make any difference, you know. One time I retarded too much, lost even more power, and then I over advanced it a little bit. But either way, it made no difference. This thing goes approximately 25 miles an hour. So at this point in time, I have no idea. It seems to me it is starving for fuel, even though the carburetors are opening up. I got a reseal kit, cleaned every component, inspected everything there is. It's not much in there anyways. So I couldn't find nothing wrong with the carbs itself. And so now I'm posting this video and hoping somebody who watches this knows what the problem with this motor could be. So to summarize, the motor has good compression now. It has now between 190 and 200 pounds on each cylinder. I'm going to show this here in a bit. The carburetors are clean. They don't leak. I got fuel, of course fresh fuel. The fuel pump works as it should. I got a couple other fuel pumps laying around. I changed them around, make sure this thing is not starving from the fuel pump side. Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be, especially in the mid-range, it seems to be kind of falling on its face. It does slightly backfire at times in certain RPM ranges, which is usually an indicator of this thing running too lean. The jets that was in the carburetor were they called number or hashtag 92, number 2, 92, whatever that's supposed to mean. And by the manual, those are the correct jets for the 40 horsepower motor. So let's get to the part where I run this motor, and then hopefully somebody who watches this has somewhat of an idea. So yeah, here comes the compression test. It turns out it just basically has compression like a brand new motor now, fully restored. After, of course, I replaced the head gasket, clean everything up. And yeah, okay, let's get to it. Cylinder number 1. Cylinder number 2. Last one, cylinder number 3. Okay, time for test run. Yeah, it starts up and idles pretty well, but it's on high RPM it starts, I don't know, doesn't sound right. So what I think is really the way it sounds like that the motor is starving for fuel. It sounds okay if as long as it runs in idle. It doesn't really shake or anything. It doesn't feel like it's missing out. But as soon as I start accelerating, it becomes more inconsistent. And the engine starts shaking more. It shouldn't actually shake more. It should shake less. Given the fact it's a 3-cylinder, they're usually idle a little bit more rough than, let's say, a 4-cylinder would do. But they would smooth out as the RPM increases. It seems the opposite on this motor. I could hear slightly backfire. And so I really have the feeling this thing is, the carburetor is not supplying enough fuel. Okay, so what I did, I just checked I found a carburetor manual from Honda. So there's basically the BF40 and the BF50, they are identical motors. There's a few differences, and one difference from what I found out, the BF50 uses a number 130 main jet. So that's a huge difference between a 92 and which that's supposed to be the one for the 40 horsepower, according to the carburetor manual. And the 50 horsepower is using a 130. So I just ordered those. And I'm going to install them in, and hopefully that would fix it. But I'm not sure, of course, it's a process of elimination. Yeah, so I already changed the ignition module around. I pretty much went through everything. The motor is, since it builds up enough compression, the timing is on. So the motor shouldn't sound like that. And yeah, the boat shouldn't move like a damn slug. I mean, I can probably paddle faster with my kayak at this point in time. Yeah, that's just what it is. I hope somebody could help me here by leaving a comment about what it could be. Just please no guesswork. I can guess all day long perfectly on my own. I need answers, please. So yeah, I know this is getting a little bit boring now. It's dragging on. I understand. I'm just kind of almost desperate to get some answers here. So that's why I'm really trying to demonstrate what it really does. In this particular segment, you can clearly see how it's really bogging down as soon as I hit the accelerator. But maybe I'm wrong with this whole thing. Maybe that's just a little 40 horsepower motor and it just doesn't perform all that great. In the end, that boat was rated originally with an 80 horsepower motor, or up to 80 horsepower, which I used to have it back then when I bought it. Came with an 80 horsepower Mercury, and it did pretty good. I mean, it was running 50, 60 mile an hour all day long. And then I got a hold of this old Mercury Tower of Power, the inline 6, the 150 horsepower screamer. Everybody who's been around outboard motors back in the 70s, 80s, he knows about those motors. That was lots of fun. Of course, the boat was completely uncontrollable. I never dared running it full wide open throttle because it came so far out of the water. I had the feeling if I push one more time or a little bit more forward, this thing is becoming airborne. So my last memory I have from the way that boat was originally running was insane speed. Great acceleration and everything. And now I'm sitting here and dealing with this pathetic snail of a motor. Well, hey, is there anybody out there who's got a BF40 on a similar size boat? Let me know what kind of speed you're getting usually out of this thing. Maybe I should stop chasing ghosts here. So, yeah, my conclusion is either the motor, there is something wrong. It's not putting out full power, which I think that's what it is, or the motor is too small for that boat, and I'm just going to end up selling it and put a bigger one on there. If I can find one, preferably something around 100 horsepower or so. Okay, thank you for watching, and please leave comments.